live today, and I wanted to talk with you. I just published an article which was difficult to uh, get out the door. It's been sitting in draft for a while. On and I've titled it "The Rise of the Fascist Within," because I have been attending demonstrations here this summer and have noticed just an effect on myself.
Mm.
And so I've published that now if anybody wants to read it. But that's kind of what I'd like to talk about today is how corrosive. I was surprised at how corrosive that was for me. But also, there's been a couple of things in the news which kind of dovetail to this time. And one is we have often talked about cults and Christianity. And I guess there was a failed rapture attempt last week, which might have disappointed a lot of folks. And then the other thing was the witches of Etsy, apparently. Did you hear about this?
I did read that article and heard about that a while back. Yes.
Yeah, they were talking about how the witches of Etsy had cursed Charlie Kirk, and he was really worried about it, and they prayed and
And
you
that
know,
was just a little before the shooting.
yeah, the hex was supposed to be delivered in 2 weeks, and then in 2 weeks later, he coincidentally was shot. So, I just thought that was another. Like, I think it's worth talking about that because I think there's a lot of assumptions in there.
Yeah.
Um, and you and I both have experience in the alternative world. So, um, and also I have and experience in the mainstream world. So I think that is something that we could talk about
Yeah, for
between
sure.
us intelligently. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Sin.
Oh, good morning,
Good
Herbert.
morning, Herbert. Yeah, good morning, everyone else who's watching, whenever you're watching.
Thank you for joining in.
Yeah. So it's been a hot minute since we have done a video.
Yes.
A whole lot of life has happened.
Yes.
In all the places and in all the ways between where we've been and where we are now. And so,
Yeah.
welcome to the end of September. Welcome to autumn, right?
How did that happen?
Like, oh, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
And I just read something yesterday about we are in the seventh stage of this mess. And I am not someone who is educated on history that much.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
I don't know either what the stages of authoritarianism are.
Uh-huh.
However, apparently there are markers that some folks are interpreting as we're in stage 7 now, which no matter what the numbers are, that sounds like, oh, we're getting in there, right?
Yes, and it's
Uh,
starting to ripple out to Britain, which when we got here 2 years ago had not had any of these ideas or concepts, and everybody was just kind of peacefully going along. And it's very much whipped things up here and started directing the conversation here in the media, at least.
mm,
Not that I've had conversation too much with my neighbors or people in the wild, but in the media, it's directing conversation. And yeah. And I
yeah.
think it is also dampening down discourse. Like people are just a little bit less friendly in day to day life,
Mm,
a little bit less
mm.
open.
A little more guarded.
Yeah, bit more guarded. Yeah, bit
I can
more
see that. I can feel that.
yeah.
I um I find myself, I have been so far removed from society, from the outside world for these last 5 weeks due to everything that's been going on in our family that, um, I I f I feel all kinds of ways about it, including clueless on some level. So we haven't been watching news really at all. I haven't even had time to do a lot of the reading that I generally do. And so in some ways it's been beautiful, and in other ways it's like, oh, I still am aware that there's all of these things happening. And so I really, again, appreciate this touchstone that we have, this ongoing communication and connection to
Yeah.
ourselves, to our humanity, and to the greater picture of what is happening in this rise of authoritarianism around the world,
Around the world.
right? Around the world.
Around the world. And it's interesting, it's almost like it's been given permission by the United States, which sets that tone, which has always sort of taken a moral high ground and said, we're going to fight for truth, justice in the American way. And so, it's like a permission to, release this ability to become more authoritarian, more crackdown, more patriarchal, to like revert to more of a patriarchy. Um, and I honestly, my gut instinct says that they know climate change is coming and climate change is real, and everyone is sealing their borders right now as a result. I just, I just believe that this is a much bigger movement than just the United States is having an impact. When the previous presidency of Donald Trump brought us a huge rise in the Black Lives Matter movement, right? And the pushback on that resonated around the world, and as a result, we had a lot more um, conversation around um, whiteness and the experiences of people of color, and you know as a result of that. And this time, I think we're seeing something very different than that.
Very different than that.
Very
Very
different.
different than that. And part of that is because Black people in America have stepped aside and they're like, we're just going to let you white people deal with your own shit, your own mess, right?
Right.
And that is a piece of it. And I want to speak that into reality, or that truth into this conversation, because that is reality, right? That is part of it. Because if Black people were in the streets protesting in the spring or in the summer the ways that they have in the past, then perhaps there would have been more violence, right? And that violence would have escalated even more here. So we might continue to see a focus in that direction. But with that sidestep and that um, allowance for us to navigate how we are, or as white people are going to navigate through this mess, then I believe that that allows a filtering of like, oh, where climate change is real and it's not less important. Um, uh, all the all the fights for freedom across the board are connected, right? They're all
Hmm.
interconnected, and that
Right.
um, I think we're just allowed to see glimpses into, right, what other things are trickling in.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like, because over here watching the migration debate, which I'm fairly new to because I've only been here for 3 years, right? Like, after coming back after a couple decades of hiatus, and I'd lived here a couple decades prior. So, um, you know, coming back into this situation, the migrants don't take up a huge portion of the population. Like, it's being pointed out over and over again that that's actually a smaller part of the population than is admitted to by people who want to absolutely stop them, and to turn them back, and close the hotels and ship everybody back, right? It is a small portion of the population. So the question that I'm asking is, what does the political leadership see as happening, that it needs to lock everything down and pull up the ladders? what is it? What is it? What's its eye really on? Because this is a foil. This is like in the United States. I see the migrant issue here as the abortion issue in the US.
Yeah.
So you make everybody all up fire about abortion and the dying babies, while ignoring all of the people dying in the streets from gun violence and those are it's just doesn't it's a dissonance that doesn't add up, but it's something that people can tag on to and get sympathy for, and that it affects every home and family, women's reproduction and reproduction rights. So here I feel like the migrant issue is the British abortion issue. The Brits don't get fussed. They're not really a very they're spiritual but not religious anymore. All the churches are closing, right?
Mhm.
Or were, until the evangelical money started pouring in from the Trump government and the US, not necessarily the Trump government, but from US entities, right? Money is coming over here to fund evangelicals, and I'm seeing people getting evangelized on the streets. That doesn't happen.
Wow.
That does
That
not happen in England.
No, but that is
Nobody has
happening?
conversations. They're considered to be embarrassing and, like, "Don't talk to me about it. That's private." There's, like, a very big public-private divide in England between your private self that you have in 4 walls and the self that you have outside the 4 walls. I imagine Japan to be, although I've never been to Japan, like that kind of thing, and you don't talk to English people about certain subjects and till it's embarrassing. It's
Mm,
considered to be embarrassing. So I do feel like they have found this issue and that it's linked to something much bigger. But I also feel that it is, and it's linked to money coming from the United States into this country, which I've seen or heard. I actually had somebody tell me that England is the motherland. I found that very weird. And I felt like that was a white supremacist, tell, like, "You're going back to the motherland." And then I've also seen people, talk about, "Oh, I'm gonna try to trace my lineage back to the Crusades." I'm like, "Why? Why?" And
right.
right now, the Cross of St. George is really being used as a symbol for this, English patriotism, which has never it's not been allowed except for like football games or royal occasions. It's been very boxed in because the English, when they came back from World War II, saw what the flag had done and saw the nationalism around it and didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so really discouraged people from flying the flag. Like, it was not the thing to do. If you flew a British flag, you were a Nazi. And I mean,
Mm,
like, in the 80s and 90s, that's just how it was.
mm,
And people really looked down on it and, really looked down on, the American thing of getting up and pledging allegiance to the flag in the morning. They were just like, "No, that's too close to what Hitler was able to do." So now we're seeing this resurgence in the Cross of St. George, and the old guard that grew up with that older tradition is like, and the new people, the younger generation's going, "Why not? Like the Americans do it. Like, why can't we have our flag? Why can't we fly our flag? We're going to wrap ourselves in the flag, and this is our country, and we want to take our country back." So there is all of this. Uh, Nationalism, patriotism, you know, and in England, if you're English, that's the huge ties to whiteness, right? So there,
mm,
that is that big tie. Although if you're British, you're everything. The British are everybody.
yeah.
But the English, that's like a national. Now, I went to visit my friend in Wales and I said, has any of this touched Wales yet? And she's like, no, we're very proud of our international dimension. We're very proud to have everybody here. That's part of what makes us strong as Wales. They have the best flag in the world. It has a dragon on it. It's
Oh,
amazing.
fantastic.
But
That's fantastic. I do think that, I love that. I and I did not remember that, so I really appreciate that visual this morning. Thank you. And thanks, Wales.
just a different
The
perspective.
right?
Hmm.
I do think circling back to the climate change factor
Hmm.
um, and the migration factor, the common denominator there is still fear, right?
Hmm.
It's so much fear. Whatever is happening in this rise in authoritarianism, it's all rooted in fear, their own fear, right? That they're then turning into power
I feel like
or
it's
power over.
it's it's rooted in fear, but it's also rooted in privilege.
Oh yeah.
We have the right to this,
Oh
and we
yeah.
are going to reassert our right and our privilege. It's rooted in privilege, and then it's also rooted in religion. It's
Mhm.
rooted in this idea of Jesus coming back, and this idea that, the rapture is imminent,
Right.
and our we have to bring Jesus back through. And I was actually in mass in my area, and the priest said, I just came back from Rome. He was so fired up. Just came back from Rome and I'm so happy. It was, a congregation of young people, and there were a bazillion of them. And, and, we are in the end times. I thought, oh, no, not the Catholics.
Right.
And he says, you know, the church gives us, in the church gives us the three things that will happen in the end times. And, like e- everybody's like the state of all the Jews become Christian. I thought, well, that hasn't happened.
Right. We're not there yet. I
And
tell
then he
you.
rattled off these other things that were, supposedly going to happen. And I'm like, okay, so if we've got the British Catholics believing this now and thinking that we're in the end times, like,
That's a thing. That's a marker, right? And I've
it's
said that a
marker.
number of times
It's
about
something.
things of like, that's a marker, right? That's a
It's
tell. That's a
marker.
marker of something.
Yeah, it's a
And
marker.
there have been quite a few times that I've said that lately, around a variety of things, including some financial components here in the country, right? About things that are happening economically. But that is definitely a marker. If the Catholics in Britain are talking about the end times, I mean, they've been talking about the end times forever, and also not to that extent.
Well, you have in the liturgy, part of the credo is I believe in, and it talks about the coming, right? But the rapture and the end time philosophy is American, and it's actually Protestant, and it was actually made up by an American. So it's not. It's actually heresy, really, is what I would class it as if
Mhm.
I was a Catholic theologian, which I'm not, so I'm not qualified to do that. But I would actually say, in terms of Catholicism, it's heresy.
Yeah,
I think
that
it is
totally makes sense.
heresy.
That classification would make sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just because it's a Protestant product of ev of evangelism.
yeah.
Yeah, and just because
Um,
all your friends believe it, and it's convenient socially to believe it, doesn't mean that it's actually something that is, um, good to have in your day-to-day life,
right.
says the person who grew up as a Christian Scientist.
We, um, we, uh, Kelly and I had seen that it, or had heard that the rapture was supposed to happen this week, and it was last week, and we forgot to tell her mom. We just, like, we're not trying to keep news from her when we hear it. We told her that we would let her know if there were any important news stories that we needed to tell her. Apparently, neither of us deemed that important enough to tell her, and or to think of in the moment with everything else that was going on. And then on Tuesday, when it had happened, not happened, we were like, oh, yeah, by the way, this thing was supposed to happen and it hasn't happened. And we all had a good laugh over it. And also, I haven't had a chance yet to circle back with her to have a conversation about what that feels like for her when something that she is looking forward to and that is supposed to happen yet again has not happened yet again. So I'll be curious to have that conversation with her, and see what that feels like
But
in her body and
who
her
was
being.
this person of bountiful wisdom who came up with it was gonna happen on Tuesday? I mean,
I have no idea. It just showed up one day on social media, and I was like, "Oh, apparently the rapture's supposed to happen." But I was too busy to even dig deeper into the story. I don't know. But
yeah.
I feel like every so often they just put it out there like, "Oh, it's going to happen now. Oh, it's going to happen now." And
Well,
I am
for all of those
reading.
families that are desperately believing that the rapture was going to happen on Tuesday, that it's some sort of wake-up call to, like, get their lives moving and pay their mortgage and don't be delayed on the car payment and make sure your kids get an education and please do have that doctor's appointment for that pain in your head and, you know,
Right?
let's not let's
Yeah.
not, put things off. I don't know.
I
So I'm my practice right now is like I have a sign on my desk. It says, "What is truth? What is illusion? What is distorted truth? Practice discrimination. Sort the good from the rotten. What is
yeah.
illusory? Hold your line." And I think that is as we go deeper into this time of authoritarianism for whatever reason, I think we have to really stick by this practice of what is truth, what is illusion, and for our inner circles at least call each other out on distorted truth.
Yeah, I think we do need to, right? I think that
Yeah.
especially as we go forward, because there is so much distortion. I am listening to a book, an audiobook called Untitled Uncultured,
Mhm.
and I forget the author's name in this moment. It is a book about someone else who was raised in a cult of of a different variety, and um, she references Y2K as
Mhm.
one of the examples of, right, the times when, oh, the end of times, right? Everything is going to change. And for those of us that are old enough to remember Y2K and the coming of the year 2000 and how everybody, or how some people thought things were going to end, we've thought this so much that right now, I think the discernment of what is real and what is truth is ever so important. Because it
And
is getting harder to believe
I feel like
what's real.
that is an increased personal for me and for me personally, it's an increased personal accountability.
Mm,
And so, um, in the post that I wrote that I just sent today, it's about the rise of the fascist within. And I I was talking about attending several protests this summer, and some of them were these migrant hotel protests. Um, and and how I noticed that I had an attraction to these, like, very chaotic, violent situations where I was, like, right in there with my camera, right up close, people, like, screaming at each other and shouting and cursing and swearing and, you know, crowds and crowds of people, and I was just, like, pressed right up it with my camera, just so adrenaline pumping, so excited, like this is the place for me. Like, why would I feel so comfortable there? Like, there's a violent part inside of me that feels like really comfortable in a mob scene. So that's something to wonder about. Like, what part of me is attracted to that, right?
Yeah, right, and I think the reality is that there is that part inside all of us, whether
Right.
however big or small it is, however we want to acknowledge or not acknowledge it,
Yeah.
however it shows up or doesn't show up. Like, if we are truly all everything and
Mhm.
everyone, which I believe us to be, then we
Mhm.
have to start having these kinds of conversations about like, "Oh, wow, yeah. I I noticed that in me. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for bringing that forward. Thank you for having some awareness of like, oh, wow, the adrenaline is a real deal thing,
Yeah.
right? The endorphins are a real deal thing.
Yeah.
The feeling of connection and passion
Right.
in whatever the thing is,
Right.
and it can show up in places that surprise the heck out of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like oh,
Even the group belonging, being there as a journalist, I belong to a group. I have a purpose in being there. I have a reason
mhm,
for being there. I have a reason to talk to people. That is part of that group mentality, whether it's a good job or, I could be an ambulance person and have a reason for being there, right? But
yeah, right.
so there's that sense of belonging, like you said.
And that's really all connected to ego too, right? If we think
Right.
about like that part of us that identifies as self,
Mhm.
right? That's ego related as opposed to that part of us that identifies as collective or as the spiritual side of us. And not to say ego is all bad. Like it's not it's
No,
right,
no.
it's important. And also and not to say that we're egotistical anytime that we're talking about ego either. I want to
Right,
be
right.
really clear
No,
about
ego,
that, right?
talking
Like
about it, like, in a psychological sense as in basically
yeah, yeah,
the
right.
driving force, the
And
libido.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and when we talk about our identity as a journalist
Uh-huh.
or as a teacher or as a
Mhm.
whatever the right, whatever the
Right.
role is, as a parent or as a daughter or like that's still all tied up in ego.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And then the other thing I noticed was, so in the post I talk about how, um, I was rattled. Well, I went to the first one, and it was in my community, and, there was a fascist man there who gave like, his friend gave a Sig Heil, and he got, like, his arm halfway up, and I got it on camera, and then he came and confronted me about that afterwards. And then he looked me up on LinkedIn, so, he was definitely, like,
Mm,
trying to figure out who I was. And then after that, that was in the morning, then I went to a protest in the afternoon, which was in front of the migrant hotel, which is where, like, the big protests are happening in Britain, and if you look at the article, the video is in there of that protest, and I just realized that these, because I'd been to a few of these protests, and I'd heard some of the people in the protest. Some of them are residents, but
mm,
some of them, are, like, travel protest to protest, and they shout, like, Nazi invective because I've heard it
mm,
and I have it on tape, so I can stand behind what I've said, and, they're shouting those kinds of things, and then their big thing in front of this hotel was, one of the residents had, um sexually assaulted and has been convicted of a sexual assault on a 14-year-old girl. He kissed her. He
mm,
leaned over and, you know, and she didn't want that, and then there was a hand on the thigh, I believe. This is just from memory.
mm,
So, um, and then an older person, and then he was, also talking to the girl in an inappropriate way. So it was sexual assault. I believe he was convicted the other day. Um, And so in front of this hotel, they were, pedo is what they were, pedo supporter, you support pedophiles if you support this hotel, it
Mm.
was all that. And it was very, like a lot of it was very nasty. And in the morning, it was nasty and racist and very nasty and racist. Right. So, um, I got home and I realized, I don't want to go back to that because I felt like just by being there, I was lending my energy in some way to it. And I didn't feel like I felt like it because it had been platformed so much in the news, this one hotel, that it actually moved that cause forward a lot more than it would have otherwise.
Mhm.
But in the article, I say I'm in two minds about this because when I was working for a TV station in Central Ohio, we had people with Nazi flags and white supremacists marching up and down on Sawmill Parkway um, a couple of summers, and we didn't report on it at all. And it just allowed it to grow in the dark to the point where last year we had people with actual swastikas and AK-47s in Columbus, right? In at
Right.
front of the drag show, buildings. So
Yeah. It is one of those hard things, right? To
yeah,
witness and
yeah, but
to
also to
share.
as a
And
journalist, like, do
but
you? It's very
how where's
difficult
that
because
line of how much to share? And
you don't want to platform them, but at
yeah.
the same time, you can't ignore this cancer growing in the dark. If you let it grow in the dark, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, you know.
The overall presumption. I don't know. I don't know that I have the right words. I don't know that I have many right words or good. Uh, my words are
Your
still
wisdom is
jumbled.
good, Diane. I
I
love
know.
you.
I love you and I appreciate you. And I'm literally simply showing up today because my brain is not uh it's not fully back in track yet. And um I want to speak to your value as a journalist and to the value of journalists across the world because there is tremendous value in it. And I understand the concerns that you're expressing about um, and by witness, I meant allowing us to witness through you ultimately. But by sharing how much, by trying to decide how much is appropriate to share, right? As a journalist, I
Mhm,
respect that difficult decision about how much energy do I put into this, and also if I don't put any energy into this, into sharing this and
mhm,
platforming this,
mhm,
then does it get worse because we didn't? And we've seen
mhm.
historically and historically that it does. So thank you for sharing, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for being willing to show up in that place and being like, oh, I'm here now. And also, I still have to share this because this is really happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I just didn't know after that, like, how much I wanted to actually go back to that location and share what they were doing because I felt like the repetition really fanned the flames. And then also I
Right.
felt like it was personally corrosive because after being in these two places, I noticed something in my thinking change. And
Mm.
that was really interesting to me because I have done so much work on myself, or have tried to do work on myself, of deconstructing, mm, you know, the white supremacy that I grew up with. Um, and when I remember walking in my community and seeing somebody who looked like they were from one of my hotels coming towards me, and I thought, well, maybe, maybe they're right. Maybe they should close that hotel. Really, really, that thought came, and it was so subtle and so little, and so um, it fortunately was also new, so I could see it for itself. And I could see it as my mind having absorbed something of that when I was at that place. And because it was new and it stood in contrast with how my normal thinking was, I was able to look at it and go, okay, no, no, I'm a migrant. I know I'm a migrant. I'm just as I could be in a hotel just like them.
Yeah.
No, no,
Yeah.
I could be in this situation. I could be fleeing. I work with people who fled. I've, came from the States to England. Okay, that's not much of a situation, but I did it as a young woman because I was raised in a cult and I had to get out or else I was going to commit suicide. Yeah. It was gonna kill me. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just, I utterly, utterly, utterly empathize with them every single step of the way. And
And
to have
animals.
a thought show up was interesting because there was this one guy that I met at the Stand Up to Racism when they came, and I talked to one of the stewards. They have these people called stewards that go along the march and keep people safe and in line and stuff like that. And I said, "Well, why are you here?" And he said, "Because the British far right uses." These events as a soft sell, as a soft opening. They'll take a community problem or a community concern and they'll hop in and they will seem to get, and that it's a soft opening for other people in the community to join them. And it's like a recruiting tactic.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, you know, I didn't get it from him before, but now I'm glad I talked to him and because I get it now. Because this is what happened. They recruited a couple of my neurons there. They recruited a couple of my brain cells. Luckily, I was able to de-recruit those brain cells, but
Right.
seriously,
And
like,
only because you are
yeah,
willing to look at your own thoughts,
yeah,
right? Only because you're willing to look at your own thoughts with discernment, right?
yeah,
So thank you for that. Because
yeah,
not all of us are, or not all of us are able to catch them as fast as we want or as we could, right? Because that shit's real.
yeah. Because I feel like that those thoughts are fundamentally anti-human, and that's not what I want to be. I'm very pro-human, pro-humanity,
Yeah.
um, and I feel like those kinds of thoughts are. Besides, it's not what I stand for. It's not who I am.
Part of what I has happened this week in the US is that Donald Trump came out and I believe, I don't know, there's something going on around about Tylenol. Not
Oh, yeah,
my word.
yeah, yeah.
Not my word, but right, he wasn't able to say acetaminophen.
That's right.
So, and about autism.
Right, that's
And I know so many families who are injured and devastated by that statement and that discussion and that argument that right, that is all happening around that. And I bring it up because I think those little things rub off on us in so many ways.
mhm,
Whether it's around racism or
mhm.
ableism or
Right,
pick another ism,
right,
like it is subtle and it's insidious
right.
and it can be really violent even when it doesn't seem like it. It's really nice and soft and gentle, and that's why it's so sneaky, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's that violence, and that's why I called the post "The Rise of the Fascist Within," is because the violence always has in order for us to have larger movements of violence, it always has to start with us. It always has to start with the person.
Yeah. And the more
Um,
that we whittle away humanity,
yeah,
right? We also have to recognize that the more we whittle away anyone else's humanity, the more we whittle away our own humanity.
right, 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 and then so I close in the post um on a reflection that arose after I saw that thought. And because there was another, even subtler thought behind it that was even smaller and more. And that was, this, I was thinking, well, how do the people who are just your ordinary run of the mill, maybe voted the British equivalent of Republican in the last election, how do they get converted so that they're now, um, you know, uh, yelling at people, screaming at people, which is not something that like British people typically do unless it's a
Right.
football match.
Yeah.
um, anyway, I was thinking, how do you let it get that far? How do you let it go to that place? And then
Well,
I remembered how when it seemed like, the right wing, the like it was rising, and the right wing was rising in the United States for the, I don't know what event it was. Maybe it was after one of those Nazi marches that I saw in in Ohio. But I remember thinking, those Antifa, they at least they get stuff done.
mm.
And I thought, bingo, there it is. There's the excuse for violence right inside myself. you
Oh,
know,
I find it inside myself.
yeah, at
I
least,
find it
they
inside
say
myself.
to us about us liberals, we're just too nice. Well, at least, and I'm thinking that's the violence. That's it. That's the violence in me. That's the rise of the fascist in me, because the left can be just as violent as the right, right? And um and so and the left can be just as much of a fascist force
Hmm.
as the right. Stalin, fascism killed like 23 million Russians or something. It was like an enormous number. I don't remember the correct number,
That's
but
a
it was
big
an
number.
enormous number. And Mao, again, same massive slaughter of innocent people. And Hitler, and now we're seeing an actual genocide unveil in front of our eyes in Gaza. And everybody, all the leadership has excuses, just left, right, and center for this slaughter, this starvation to continue, which doesn't have to continue.
It doesn't have to continue.
No, it could be
And yet,
stopped. It could be stopped now, right now. Those
yeah,
people could be given help and death stopped now.
yeah,
So it's that fascist within that holds on to the idea that that violence of some sort can is the way forward. And that's what these marches taught me this year. It's an unpalatable lesson.
mm. Some people believe that violence is necessary.
Pardon?
Not some people believe that violence is necessary.
Necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. When I really, when I look at nature, as I
Hmm.
often do, right? Um, and I watch hummingbirds a lot.
Hmm.
And hummingbirds look like they're playing a lot, but they're actually violent as hell. They're very aggressive, they're very territorial.
Hmm.
They they are focused on making sure that they get the food that they need, right?
Right.
And I understand that. It's I'm not saying violence is necessary, and also I don't know. It's it's a right? I mean, I don't know how to do this any humaning any more than any of the rest of us know how to do this
Yeah.
humaning.
Yeah. I don't know how to do
Right?
it either.
I don't. Like, we're all making it up every day, but what
Okay,
I
so which
know
leads
is
us to the witches of Etsy. Okay.
right?
This leads us neatly to our last topic, which is the witches of Etsy. What do you think about that story? And violence, because that's about inner violence. That's about, okay, I feel powerless. I understand that if a person feels powerless and they know how to use energy, then energy seems like a way of affecting change. Um,
So
so
here's what I'll say about that particular individual that was shot.
mhm.
And I don't believe that his shooting was directly tied to any witches,
Okay, so that's what I'd like to stick with because
right?
I think
I
getting
don't I don't
character of
believe,
the man.
yeah. I don't believe that it was directly tied to any witches. I'm not
Right.
saying that people that anyone with any kind of ability to
Mhm,
believe in whatever your spiritual or not spiritual energy beliefs are,
mhm,
right? Because um, witchery, we'll just say that
mhm.
is a form of religion for folks, whatever umbrella it's
Broad church,
right
right?
under.
Broad
It's right.
yeah.
We can utilize it like that. So I don't care if you're coming from a Christian or Jewish background or Muslim background or any of the other recognized world smaller religions, including paganism or anything else.
Mhm,
It's for me, I'm gonna just lump that under stuff is possible, right? We see people be healed all the time with hands-on healing. We see, all kinds of things. Um, again, I don't believe it's direct. The witches didn't directly cause his death with their
right,
hexing. They
right,
didn't.
right.
Some particular person with a gun, perhaps there were more people involved with a bigger plan, but I don't believe that the hexing directly caused that death.
Mhm,
I do believe that that man was violent
mhm,
in his words,
mhm,
and I would like to talk more about that at some point.
mhm.
I don't want it necessarily to be today, but I want us to maybe circle back to that in a future conversation because it really ties in with your um, realization of the violence within
Mhm.
potential for violence within, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately,
I
or
mean, he drew violence. He drew violence out in others. Otherwise, he wouldn't have drawn out vi he drew out violent he evoked it somehow in
right,
other people.
very effectively and
Yeah,
very subtly and very insidiously and in the name of God, which
yeah,
is where I really have a lot of challenges with um which is what that's the kind of thing where I can generalize and lump Christians all together and I know better.
mhm, mhm.
But I can be like, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
then so I've had to like really in the last few years like Diane, you know better than that. Slow your roll, like step back. And also there is a faction or fractions of Christianity where, right, that violence is acceptable and promoted
Mhm.
because of all the reasons.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like if we were gonna talk about it, I would need to know more because I really don't know much about him. I didn't ever he never really crossed my path until he was shot, really. So I don't
Sure,
but
sure. I think that that's the case for most people.
yeah, I just feel like this, I think that it's interesting to have this phenomenon of this idea that a lot of them have of spiritual warfare. I think that's where I was
Yeah,
going with it,
right?
you know?
I recently read something that said, and I don't remember, so the vice president has been stepping in with
Uh-huh,
Charlie's podcast and
uh,
like was like flew with the body back to like, and has really like stepping up the cult like behavior, but whatever. Um, and so somewhere in connection with an article about that, I read that someone said something about this is the beginning of spiritual warfare. And
yeah,
I thought,
but, they've been talking about this
I
spiritual
was just saying, I thought to myself, this is
battle.
not the beginning of that. People have been talking to me about that for a decade or
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
For some people, this might be the beginning, but for a lot of folks, they've been in this.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's curious.
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, I think that's, like, a uniquely American idea is that we're in spiritual warfare.
Mm,
Because that nobody w if I tried to talk about spiritual warfare to anyone here, they would want a definition, they would want a backstory, they would be curious as to why I wanted to talk about this when there was, you know, the bin collection to talk about or what they were stocking, whether they've got mince pies at Sainsbury's, I mean, there's, like, a lot of better things to talk about than
right?
than that. So I think, like,
I
it's
love it.
it's very American, again, this idea of, like, do we have now everything has to be a war.
Right? Why do
Why
we have
can't
a
we
war on
relax?
drugs, a war on this, a war on now we have a spiritual war, like, right? Like,
Can we not just relax? Just enjoy ourselves for a
mm,
while?
no, we can't.
Why are you guys gearing up for war all the time? Changing the Department of Defense to the Department of War because it sounds better.
So don't does it? It doesn't sound any better to me than all that fucking concrete that used to be a rose garden.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a matter of personal taste, but, to change
it is.
the Department of Defense to the Department of War just really, like, shows a different, policy. It's a
It
policy change
shows
without
a
having a policy
very different
change.
approach.
Yeah, I wonder
It
if
shows
they'll
a
have
different approach, right?
will they have a Department of Spiritual Warfare? If they have a Department of
Is
Defense, will
that
they have
under Department is
it's
right, is that
Department of
under the
War, will they
Department
have
of War?
a
Do we have, like
Department of Spiritual War? Was
they're
that like a
probably
sub-department?
I feel like that's, like, the in the closet, like, that's there is already that there, and that's what part of why they're like, "Let's change the name." Yeah.
Okay,
You
we're laughing
know,
because we can't laugh because it's serious.
it is
Trauma
serious, and also
laughter.
we have to laugh,
Yeah, trauma laughter. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because releases are important.
Yeah, releases are
So,
and also,
uh,
like you said before, you and I are just humans doing humaning. We're just trying to be in this and still be thinking, feeling open-hearted creatures,
yeah,
um,
right?
which is
Still
really important.
engaged in community and connection, and
Yeah.
yeah, still open-hearted, still saying stop, not totally guarded up, and, like so, yeah, laughter is important,
Yeah.
and I'm glad Herbert is laughing with us.
I'm glad her too. Thank you for
'Cause,
being in our conversations, Herbert.
um going back to what you were talking about earlier about trying to decide where to invest your energy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I am currently in that situation. I've been, like I said, I've sort of removed myself from all outside activities to focus on family for the last month or so. And now I'm like, okay, how focused on that am I going to stay? And when, I'm going to broaden that lens and what does that look like? And where am I going to be able to have impact and be effective in whatever those ways might be? And what is best for me, not just necessarily what is best for everyone, and also what is best for everyone and not just for me.
Right.
So, I'm not sure. There's a No Kings protest, event. There are events being, held coming up on October 18th across the country. There are folks that are trying to get to DC. There are folks that are trying to get people to host events in their local areas. And for me, I'm just trying to figure out sort of what is next. And
Uh-huh.
what does that look like? Like, obviously, I'm gonna get to the polls and vote. I've been helping some of the local politicians get their name out and get their information out. Those are important things. And then, right, what else can I do that continues to help us stay human and celebrate ourselves and celebrate love? And Now that he's officially coming for the birth control pills, I will
Oh,
probably be.
really? Tell me about that. He's officially
I just saw something about it this morning, so I haven't gotten the link. But for years, people have been saying, right, buy Plan B, stock it up, store it up. But I haven't because it only has a 4-year shelf life. But I read this morning that he's officially coming for birth control, and so buying Plan B is an option, or it's a thing that perhaps I will engage in now in ways that I haven't, because I know plenty of young women and not so young women are who run the risk of getting pregnant,
Yeah,
who may not want to be.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. We have to just one breath, 1 minute, 1 hour, one day at a time, our way through it all.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel that. I feel like you know, if you're in the tide of authoritarianism, and we definitely are, and it's a global tide, so nobody gets out of it anywhere. Maybe it's gonna take a little bit longer to reach you, but we're all on this ship, right? We have to do those things that keep us low to the ground and to keep us like really in touch with our humanity, and that's going to be doing more human activities, so more things like um your own shopping and cooking, the stuff that keeps you present and in your daily life. I
Yeah, right.
because
And with your
kind
neighbors
of we're
and with your
going with it.
people.
Well, who knows where?
Right. That's the thing. And so if you have not been someone who's building community consciously, this is the time to be doing that. It's
Yeah,
been the time to be doing it, and also don't beat yourself up over it. Just start doing it, right?
yeah.
If you are, someone who has been doing that, then just keep doing it. And
And
yeah,
then also, I think there is a certain amount of like letting go of forms and habits and relationships that are are dead.
yeah, that aren't
Just so
serving us,
and
right?
coming back into, not in, when you discover that something is rotten, that you walk away from it and you bring yourself back into yourself. Anything to strengthen that core. I think we have to strengthen our core, cores as people.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that serves you whether times are good or times are bad, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah, it does, right?
the good practice, it doesn't matter. It's good practice.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
getting low to the ground,
Yeah. Getting low to the,
right? Like literally getting low to the ground,
yeah.
right? Barefoot on the ground or
Yeah.
butt on the ground or back on the ground can be really a good thing. For me, one of the things that I want to speak to too is because we are in a change of season.
Uh-huh.
We are now, right? We're entering what I call the dark season,
Uh-huh.
right? It's the
Yeah.
cold coming, right? Already where the leaves are falling and it's been cloudy and gray and rainy for 5 days now or something. And so um upping vitamins,
Yep.
right? Upping
Yep.
exposure to sunlight or
Yeah.
to white light that reflects sunlight,
Yeah.
right? So these are things that are important because getting outside and directly connecting with the earth is not as easy for some folks this time of year in this particular part of the
Mhm.
world. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
yeah.
Yep. And just keep humaning.
Right? And showing grace and gentleness with self.
Yes, that's true.
Right. And I heard you say earlier, and it might have been before we got started on the actual live about the world is going a million miles an hour.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And it is. And also I am continually still being provided opportunities to slow. And by opportunities, sometimes I mean challenges. Right? Mm. because
Yeah,
and also, like, really, we do have, right, control to slow down.
yeah,
The fear has us, the adrenaline has us, capitalism has us, right? All those things. And so, like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, yes. And taking those times to slow down and sip some tea, have a conversation with a loved one, find a laugh or six, right? These are important.
Herbert says humaning and grace.
Mm, yeah. Right?
Yeah,
Ongoing practices.
yeah, ongoing practices. I feel like part of my, going so fast is, like, I want to, stay in the conversation and be relevant and things like that, and I feel like that's an illusion.
I get that. I get that. I
Yeah.
think that relevance, is an interesting word for women over 50 and
Oh, interesting.
worthy of another conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because it shows up a lot, that word, right? In
Yeah.
conversations that I have anyway with clients and with people that
Mm.
where I no longer feel relevant
Yeah,
is
that's right.
how it often shows up.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so yes, I think part of it is as a journalist, part of it is as a human, and part of it as a woman.
woman. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I yes.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Well,
Ah, thank you so much for
thank
another
you.
wonderful connection, another wonderful conversation, another exploration, another celebration of human and of delight and curiosity and
Yeah,
of
yeah,
willingness to just show up and surrender to the moment and be like, here we are.
yeah, and, we're thinking out loud. We're thinking out loud, and my 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 thinking is always it's like a shifting sand.
Mm,
It's winds blowing through. It's like what is real, what is truth, what is illusion, what is distorted truth.
yeah. And what is
So,
now?
and what is now.
And I love the clarification and the description that we are thinking out loud because yes,
Yeah, we are.
right? That is what we're doing. So I hosted a really big event last weekend, and one of the lessons I had was how many times I didn't use my out loud voice. I thought I said something to someone else, but I
Uh,
actually didn't,
oh, wow.
right? Like, like, oh, let's do it this way, da 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 da, and then, oh, I didn't actually say that or whatever. And and I brought this up for a reason, and it wasn't that. Can I circle it back? No. Shit. Maybe not. Um, oh, yes. Because we are thinking out loud, and because anything done with Diane is done dynamically. Right? It's very much in the moment, and things are going to change.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, yes. Yes, and yes.
yeah. Yeah, so, I'm gonna continue in the next month to explore this idea of the fascist within, but also to sort of, like, kinda just take a step back and consolidate so that I'm not exposing myself to places that are so corrosive. Um, so, yeah, I'm just trying to I feel like in times of great change, a practice of always trying to stay in integrity is, like, really good. I mean, it's a good practice anyway, but it really
It
comes up
is.
in times like this. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It
and
is a
then
good practice anyway, and then right,
yeah,
especially now, and it's fitting for the season.
yeah,
Again, we're in the going within season, right? So it makes sense to slow down and go within and to discern what is really best for the next season.
Yeah, you're right.
for you and your family, right?
Yeah,
As well as for everybody else. But
yeah,
we get
you're
to
right.
focus on us and our families first, and that's not always an easy practice, right?
No, it's
That's
not.
not always an easy practice. Particularly for us to practice on focusing on us as women.
Yeah,
Often we find, right, that we are focused on taking care of other people, family members, whatever, but not necessarily on putting what is best for me or what is it that I really want or what is it that I really need. I find that so many women
yeah.
don't have any sense of that. And I find that to be the case, particularly with, um, again, with women over 50 or women over 60 and 70 who have been raised in a different era,
Mhm.
right? And who were always putting other people first and don't have any sense of self hardly at this point. There are less of those women. And also, I think we're about to see a rise in that in younger women. And
Yes.
so that is an interesting piece for me
Yeah,
to witness and think about how do we prepare for whatever is coming beyond authoritarianism. Because there
yeah,
will be an end. I may not be here to see it. You may not be here to see it. Some people will be here to see it. And how do we lead them through it,
yeah,
right, to get to that other side and to give them a breadcrumb trail?
yeah. That's good. Well, we can think about that. The breadcrumb
Yeah.
trail.
For ourselves, right? For ourselves and each other and yeah,
Yeah.
all of
Well,
it.
anyway, it's good talking.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all so much. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you for joining us, and we'll
Take
do it
care.
again
We'll see
next
you
month.
again soon. All right.
Okay.
Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.